Well, China has now openly declared support for Nigeria, opposing what it calls the wanton threat of force by the United States. At a press briefing in Beijing, Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning said the international community must respect Nigeria's sovereignty and applauded President Tinubu for charting what she described as a development path that fits Nigeria's unique realities. This is coming just days after U.S. President Donald Trump warned of possible military action in Nigeria over what he called an existential threat to Christianity. In a fiery post on Truth Social, President Trump claimed that Christians in Nigeria are under siege, and if the killings are not stopped, America will attack what he calls fast, vicious, and sweet. The statement has triggered sharp reactions. The Tinubu administration insists that Nigeria's religious tolerance remains strong, rejecting what it calls false narratives of a Christian genocide. We've also seen presidential spokesman Daniel Bwala engage the media world round. His message has been that Nigeria welcomes U.S. cooperation against terrorism, but not at the expense of its territorial integrity. Now, with China's firm backing and Nigeria being a member of BRICS alliance, questions are being asked about where this escalating diplomatic tension could lead. Are we going to hear from Russia and the rest of Europe too? Will regional blocs like ECOWAS or the African Union take a collective stand? And what do these conversations really mean for victims of violence in Nigeria's Middle Belt, where faith, politics, and survival often collide? Tonight, we take this global controversy back home to hear from someone who's lived through the violence and has been a consistent voice for peace and justice. Joining me is Most Reverend Benjamin Kwashi, retired bishop of the Anglican Diocese of Jos, as we try to unpack the U.S. threats, the international response, as well as the local realities behind the headlines. Thank you for joining us on Beyond the Headlines. The United States, as you are aware, has branded Nigeria a country of particular concern over alleged Christian persecution. How is this being received by a constituency? I'm talking about the wider Christian community in the Middle Belt.
Well, the placement of Nigeria as a country of concern is an American decision. And I think that in their own foreign policy and engagement with diplomacy around the world, they have that kind of categorization of where they have an advantage to be able to intervene in certain conditions of their own interest in other nations. Now, we in Nigeria in particular, our cry has always been to our government. Always, always. This has been since the days of military regime in 1980. The burning of churches began very early in the military regime, the time of Babangida. This was going on, and we were seeing it continuously without arrests, without any court cases or something. We've seen our daughters being taken in and forced into marriages. And it's been on the increase little by little until by 2001, particularly in Jos, where I was bishop. And we raised that concern to government that the inability of government to protect its citizens, even in internal crisis, such as we have seen over the years, that has turned like joke into a religious divide, benefiting only the politicians, was not going to be healthy and helpful until it gave opportunity for Boko Haram's uprising. And bless his soul, President Yar'Adua was hard and decisive and wasn't going to take it. But God took him. So the thing increased to the point where the Northeast was the theater ground of such wanton killings and destruction. So actually, the church in the Middle Belt didn't start to cry until Boko Haram declared that this is their aim. So the failure of government to protect its citizens, I believe, is a cry that has gone beyond Nigeria to all over the world.
Reverend Kwashi,
different nations are reacting.
I hear you clearly, and you mentioned that the cry has always been to government here at home. But a few weeks ago, Reverend Dachomo publicly called for U.S. intervention in the Plateau killings. You may have seen the viral video where he alleged Christian genocide and specifically called on the U.S. president, referencing what he's done in Gaza. Does that reflect the sentiment among Christians in your region?
No, I think that Reverend Dachomo is a lone evangelist, by the way. So he has no particular congregation. He is a lone evangelist in charge of ministry and prayer and things like that. But I think that if you look at what senior clerics who understand diplomacy and world politics and national issues, I don't think that anybody in Nigeria will. America cannot save us, by the way. Let me put it that way clearly. America has its own interests. It is our own leaders who can help us and make us strong. Nifemi, there are people in our armed forces, security forces, immigrations, and so on, who right now, as I'm talking, don't have villages to go back to. They are serving. Their villages have been taken over, families killed, and so on. They are serving. So I think this thing portends even a bigger crisis for us internally, and nobody is going to save us from anywhere.
You know, what government insists